Popular Taxes from the Budget in Jurie Steyn's Post Office by Herman Charles Bosman. All the same, in the days of the republics, you would not find a burger doing a thing like that. Oupa Becker went on, shaking his head. Not even in the Republic of Bosman, and not even after the Republic of Bosman's Minister of Finance had lost all the state's revenues in an unfortunate game of poker that he had been invited to take part in at the Mafeking Hotel. And there was quite a big surplus too that year, which the Minister of Finance kept tucked away in an inside pocket throughout the poker game, and which he could still remember having had on him when he went into the bar. Although he could never remember what happened to that surplus afterwards. The Minister of Finance never went back to Bosman, of course. He stayed on in Mafeking. When I saw him again, he was offering to help carry people's luggage from the Ziedeberg coach station to the hotel. Oupa Becker was getting ready to say a whole lot more when Jurie Steyn interrupted him, demanding to know what all that had got to do with his post office. I said that even when things were very bad in the old days, you would still never see a postmaster running in the sun with a letter in a cleft stick, Oupa Becker explained, adding, like choppy. Jurie Steyn's wife did not want any unpleasantness, so she came and sat on the rimpy bench next to Oupa Becker and made it clear to him in a friendly sort of way what the discussion was all about. You see, Oupa, Jurie Becker's wife said, finally, after a pause for breath, that's just what we've been saying. We've been saying that in the old days, before they had proper post offices, people used to send letters with choppy runners. But that's what I've been saying also, Oupa Becker persisted. I say, why doesn't Jurie rather go in his mule cart? Jurie Steyn's wife gave up after that, especially when Jurie Steyn walked over to where Oupa Becker was sitting. You know, Oupa, Jurie Steyn said, talking very quietly, you've been an ouderling for many years, and we all respect you in the Groot Mariku. We also respect your grey hairs, but you must not lose that respect through talking about things you don't understand. Oupa Becker tightened his grip on his tamboti wood walking stick. Now, if you had spoken to me like that in the Republican days, Jurie Steyn, the old man said in a cracked voice, in the Republic of Stellaland, for instance. You and your republics, Oupa, Jurie Steyn said, giving up the argument and turning back to the counter. Gussen, Stellerland, Leidenburg. I suppose you were also in the Oorigstad Republic. Oupa Becker sat up very stiffly on the rimpie bench then. In the Oorigstad Republic, he declared, and in his eyes there gleamed for a moment a light as if from a great past. In the Republic of Oorigstad, I had the honor to be Minister of Finance. Honor? Jurie Steyn repeated sarcastically, but not speaking loud enough for Oupa Becker to hear. I wonder how he lost the money in the state skatkas. Playing snakes and ladders, I suppose. All the same, there were those of us who were much interested in Oupa Becker's statement. Johnny Koen moved his chair closer to Oupa Becker then. Even though Oorigstad had been only a small republic and hadn't lasted very long, still there was something about the sound of the words Minister of Finance that could not but awaken in us a sense of awe. I hope you deposited the state revenues in the Reserve Bank in a proper manner, Atnodea said, winking at us, but impressed all the same. There was no Reserve Bank in those days, Oupa Becker said, or any other kind of bank either, in the Republic of Oorigstad. No, I just kept the National Treasury in a stocking under my mattress. It was the safest place, of course. Johnny Koen put the next question. What was the most difficult part of being finance minister, Oupa? He asked. I suppose it was to make the budget balance. Money was the hardest thing, Oupa Becker said, sighing. It still is, Chris Velman interjected. You don't need to have been a finance minister either to know that. But of course it wasn't as bad as today, Oupa Becker went on. Being Minister of Finance, I mean. For instance, we didn't need to worry about finding money for education, because there just wasn't any, of course. Jurie Steyn coughed in a significant kind of way then, but Oupa Becker ignored him. I don't think, he went on, that we would have stood for education in the Oorigstad Republic. We knew we were better off without it. And then there was no need to spend money on railways and harbours, because there weren't any either. Or hospitals. We lived a healthy life in those days, except maybe for lions. And if you died from a lion, there wasn't much of you left over that could be taken to a hospital. Of course, we had to spend a good bit of money on defence in those days. Gunpowder and lead and oil to make the springs of our old sannas work more smoothly. You see, we were expecting trouble any day from Paul Creer and the Doppers. But it was hard for me to know how to work out a popular budget, especially as there were only 17 income tax payers in the whole of the Republic. I thought of imposing a tax on the President's state coach even. That suggestion was very popular with the income tax paying group, but you've no idea how much it annoyed the President. I imposed all sorts of taxes afterwards, which nobody would have to pay. These taxes didn't bring in much in the way of money, of course, but they were very popular all the same. And I can still remember how popular my budget was. The year I put a very heavy tax on opium. I had heard somewhere about an opium tax. Naturally, of course, I did not expect this tax to bring in a penny. But I knew how glad the burgers of the Oorigstad Republic would be, each one of them, to think that there was a tax they had escaped. Oupa Becker was still talking about the measures he had introduced to combat inflation in the early days of the Oorigstad Republic, when the lorry from Beckersdal arrived in a cloud of dust. Oupa Becker left then, for he was expecting neither correspondence nor a milk can.